You're welcome back. This is Newsfile, your most authoritative news analysis platform. And here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. My guest is Ankuma, John Jinapo, Dr. Drosai, and Professor Ransford Jampo. And some of your messages, Dr. Atuedu, Evans, Georgia. He says pulmonary diseases. Okay. Pulmonary diseases in the Impoho district have increased due to the dusty Apowa Edum Banso Road. And our MPs have been discussing the need for a new House of Parliament. This is one of the most reckless discussions in the 21st century, and it is a mockery of democracy and development. Kofi Bento says it's not true that Parliament has had no dedicated offices. Number one, Parliament has had the old Parliament House. What they needed to do was develop it. It was an extremely important historical edifice, but they pulled it down. Two, Parliament has occupied Job 600 and the adjoining facilities and spent millions of dollars fixing it for use. So they have enough. Samuel Boabing says, what's Jinapo saying? Didn't police ransack his home and detain him for hours? Per this logic, he's alluding to the fact of being a thief, hence cannot hold any public office, cannot hold any office. This style of communication is not helping this country. Samuel Brian Boabing, he says, no, he normally says he's sending from Awush.
He's a presidential stopper.
Oh, of course, that's not his doubt. Yeah, but he's a Ghanaian. He's a Ghanaian. Okay. Has the Auditor General audited the Maritime Authority? They should have access to the board's minutes. Okay, right. We should all get all of these, and the government should be interested in putting out some of this information. Yeah. The governing board that may have cleared Kwame Owusu was part of the over 140,000 eating, drinking, and dancing which happened in the Ghana Maritime Bosses Hotel. How about his own admission that those who converted the 2-bedrooms state bungalow into a 5-bedroom mansion, 4, not 5, were the Maritime Bosses relations? How about the faulty procurement that Kwame Owusu superintended? Okay, so more questions coming up. I read this final one from Mchibu Esiako. He says, please ask your experts in the studio for me, why do we as a people want civil and public servants to retire at 60 but have no age limit for the chief public servant, the president? What's the rationale behind this? Article 66 of the Constitution, is it? Mm-hmm. It says that once you retire at 60, you can have a contract for 2 years, but not exceeding 5 years. Okay, thank you. Now, John, this is your area of comfort.
Not really.
What's happening in the power sector? The PDS, the power, is it the distributors you call them, IPPs? The IPPs, independent power producers, have been forced to come public and issue a statement to say that they are owed 700 million and that they were being paid under ECG. And that debt was left with about 400. But since PDS took over, they have stopped paying them and they have accumulated an extra 300, making 700. They say if that is not paid within 14 days, is it? Then they are likely to shut down, which will mean we'll get to Dumsor, right?
Something just quickly, and my senior mentioned it. Can you imagine you have an election? I'm contesting with you. And my campaign message is that, look, I'll do a good job in Parliament, I'll help pass laws and all that. And your message is that you attend to the road. You can imagine who would win. So we'll leave that and deal with that in another forum. So it tells you the global picture.
So we must begin to change the narrative.
Yes. So, but clearly there's a problem. And I think the earlier all of us come to terms with the fact that there's a problem, the better for us. Because as it stands, the debt is compounding and accumulating. And like you rightly said, it's gotten to a tipping point where the IPPs have clearly indicated that, look, if you do not pay us, we are going to shut down. And they have no choice. You know, what they do is that they go to their financiers and raise financing and agree on a payment schedule with them. Based on that, they enter into a contractual agreement with you. So as and when you pay them, they also pay their financiers. So when you delay payments, it has implications on them, because they would have also put up some guarantees and other things. That is one. Ghana's energy mix is changed. You know, we started with hydro. When we built Akosomo, it was 971 megawatts. At that time, our peak demand was 100 megawatts. So we had a redundancy of about 700 megawatts. And so we had to give about 400 to the smelter. And then fast forward, in 1984, we started experiencing load shedding. The first major disruption was in 1984, when the dam dried. So we decided to add thermal complementation because of the variability of hydro. Today, as we stand, when I check from the energy supply plan, thermal constitutes 61% of the generation mix. Hydro constitutes just about 38%. Anytime you bring on a thermal plant, it increases the cost of production. So ECG has had some challenges, admittedly, in paying some of these bills. But at least they've tried to stay current. And so I do recall, at the time I was handing over, we did not owe Ameri, we did not owe Car Power. There was some debt. That led to the Energy Sector Levies Act to clear the legacy debt and then also ensure that you do not accumulate fresh debt. Fast forward 2.5 years now, we haven't achieved that objective. Out of the 10 billion that we intended raising, we raised only 5.6 billion. Let's even take it as 6 billion. On that 6 billion, we pay 19% coupon rate. So we pay about 1 billion. We're supposed to start paying that principal from year 5, 7, 8, 9, and 10. I've looked at the ESLA accounts and I've checked what is in the escrow. We have just about 280 million. It means that on the average, we are putting about 100 million cedis in that account. So by the 5th year, we'll have just 500 million. The 5th year, we are supposed to pay 720. The 6th year, 720. The 8th year, 840. So clearly, we cannot pay this 6 billion. Then, as if that is not enough, the 4 billion is still sitting in our books and compounding interest. If nothing is done about that 4 billion, by the 10th year, it would have compounded to 13.4 billion. So that's legacy issues. Now, current issues, like you just mentioned, another $300 million from the IPPs. Ghana Gas's debt is hitting almost 1 billion. So clearly, there's a major, major problem in the power sector. And the earlier all of us confront that situation and find a solution towards dealing with that, the better for us. Because about 80% of the cost in the generation mix is dollar denominated. The fuel they buy, the equipment, the power, everything is dollar denominated. So even anchoring your currency is a major factor. So if your currency depreciates, immediately it means that there's some gap that ought to be filled. I got disappointed when PDS issued a statement that they don't owe the IPPs.
But technically they were right.
No, yes, but then why did they pay the 250 million last week?
Okay, so what's the basis of this saying they don't owe?
What happened is that there's a generation, transmission, and distribution. The generation is the IPPs and our own VRA. The transmission basically is GridCo. Then the distribution, ECG. But now we've brought in PDS. So ECG more or less has a bulk supply contract with the generation companies, and in turn has a bulk delivery or whatever you choose to call it contract with PDS. So ECG takes the power and then gives it to PDS to sell. PDS will then sell, do the collections, and pay ECG. Then ECG can then pay the IPPs.
What did PDS replace?
I'll address that one.
What PDS is doing is simply a concession. So ECG owes the assets. PDS comes, manage the assets, sell the power, collect money, and then pay ECG. What PDS technically is supposed to do is to bring about efficiency. That's all. That is it, is to bring about efficiency, improve the system, ensure that there's collection, and eventually a reduction even in tariffs. Because once you bring about efficiency, you are reducing the losses. The loss is about 22%. So out of every 100 cedis sold,
so if you say they are technically right, why is it that you have also been on campaign urging the PDS to make the payments?
Because PDS has failed to pay ECG. No, it says technical. I'm sure he is looking at it from a legal point of view. But I'm saying that to the extent that PDS is failing to pay ECG, ECG cannot pay the IPPs. So PDS cannot extricate itself from the whole value chain. Because you have been making the collections for 4 months now. You have failed to remit the monies to ECG. Where is ECG going to get the money to pay the IPPs? That's why I said I was disappointed when PDS tried to pass the buck. Rather get involved, sit around the table. Because eventually, if these IPPs do not generate the power, PDS will have nothing to sell. That's a fact. So they must be interested in the entire value chain.
I agree with that.
As it stands now, the system is not working correctly. As it stands, and I think that we should take a holistic approach and a long-term view of the power sector so that we ensure that, look, we correct some of these things. Because for 2.5 years now, all the industry players have been making losses. Eventually, what will happen is that Ghanaians and the taxpayer will be called upon to shoulder this burden. And that's why we thought that from 2015, we should depart from that phenomena. But as it stands, we are back into that phenomena, and it's a major, major, major problem for
Actually,
us.
they gave a 14-day ultimatum, and they said, point 17 of the statement that was issued by the chamber, said, we caution that should PDS fail to respect the terms of the PPA and make payment to IPPs within 7-day period, our members will be left with no choice than to shut down their plants, as they cannot continue to be saddled with huge debts. This action, although has huge implications for jobs, cannot be avoided. Ace, help us understand.
Just 1 point before Ace comes. I beg you. Just to set.
Okay.
Just 1 point. You know, last week they released 250 million cedis to ECG. So ECG is now in the process of remitting the money to the IPPs. It means that just about $50 million. So, like, I think that beyond even the 300, there's a backlog. We must be thinking of that as well.
That's the 400. Yes. So it's help us understand, because for many of us, we thought that ECG is no longer a legal entity within the frame of the structure.
No. ECG exists. And if you look clearly, first at the statement by the chamber, and then PDS's response, it raises very interesting issues. And I'm sorry, I apologize for always looking at the law. I'm sorry. I apologize to everybody. I apologize. Because often that is where the cadavers are buried. Okay? Does PDS technically owe the IPPs? The contracts were between ECG and the IPPs. Yeah. PDS, he's right, has effectively bought a concession from ECG. The asset owner is still ECG. So PDS is operating these assets and technically paying a lease, you could call it a lease, to ECG for a certain nominated capacity a year. That you're going to get this kilowatt hours, you sort it out, pay us this amount of money. Good. I think they're paying every 3 months or so. So
no, they have to be paying every 2 weeks.
Yeah, but if you look at the calculation, where's the money? PDS is saying we have paid ECG. The critical person we should be hearing in this matter is ECG. Has anybody heard from them? PDS says, we know you are generating it. Has there been, any innovation? Because if he and I enter into a contract, I can assign the benefit of the contract with notice to him, but I can't assign the liability of the contract without his approval. Okay. So if we have a contract, ECG cannot immediately pass on the contract to PDS. It has to be a whole innovation, a whole new contractual agreement.
Part of the process.
So it's still under the transaction. PDS pays ECG. ECG must pay them. We in this track, where is the money? So ECG should indeed come and confirm whether indeed PDS is right, that they've paid the money. That is where there's a problem. Is the money still sitting with PDS or is the money with ECG? Because you and I don't owe anybody electricity.
Yes.
We are paid. And the government entities and the contractors in the situation must make sure that their inefficiencies and inability to resort their contractual arrangements doesn't affect us. Because ultimately we are the beneficiaries and the ones paying. But where is the money? What happened to the so-called cash waterfall arrangement that Parliament approved, which was going to ring fence the PDS money? So if PDS paid, it would pay to this account, and the trustee will determine that this goes to the IPPs, this goes here, this is ECG's retention. Is that arrangement working? I hear it's not working. I don't know. But so has PDS indeed paid? And has it gone into what I call a sinking fund, where every money that goes in there dissipates? These are questions that we are supposed to ask. The issues of wastage and leakage. At some point, we're told that 27% post supply by the suppliers gets missing. Is that still the case? That's what PDS is supposed to fix. At the time of Jaku, we heard that it's because there was no metering along the line to the final person. So they push it out, and at the end of the day, a whole chunk is missing. Built in some of the bills we're paying were expenses we should never pay. We heard about it, that cost of refurbishing officers were all being passed on as bills for us to pay. Oh, I can show you things that will surprise you. Yes. Refurbishment of office.
Street lights that were never on.
That's a question Ghanaians should be asking. Street lights are never on. The most graphic one is the bypass to East Airport, but between Burma Camp and the Air Force, where all the lights are off, but for the Major Mahama runabout. The lights were on. We made noise. Now even the Major Mahama runabout lights are off. And sometimes when you get to the bridge, the lights are on in the daytime. I don't know whether it is solar or it is an amazing system we have here. But no, this thing, to me, it is not a capacity problem. Ghana has overcapacity.
Right.
It is no longer even a supply of fuel problem, the problem we have. It is a management problem. It is a human problem. And it is for us to demand of ECG as a company owned by the people of Ghana, and as PDS as contractors under the scheme, and the ministry as the supervisors, to give us an explanation and not simply say talk. Where is the money? You and I have paid our electricity bills. The government isn't subsidizing them. Or is it, something if I may ask this question, that the government is the one not paying its bills? Maybe John can help us. Is it, as we hear, that there's about 80 million every month, which is important? The police must have electricity. The military must have electricity. So government must pay. Is it, as we hear, that probably just about 25% of this is paid? And so there's a debt that piles up every month for years in successive governments. Not that you and I, Samson, have blown that electricity. You are paying for your light. That actually the government is the biggest debtor. Its failure, neglect, or refusal or inability to pay its debts is part of the problem we are having. These are questions we need to ask. And we need to demand answers. And once again, it's for journalists to push this.
Right. Yes. Like you said.
I didn't even go through all my points. This is just the first one.
And okay, so you must canvass all the points. But you see, I think it nails it and simplifies where we should go for the solution. You don't owe light bills. I don't owe.
They'll cut you.
So why is there a debt? What's going on?
You see,
that they are threatening. They issued a statement on the 8th of July, and they gave a 7-day ultimatum.
I think PDS itself is also putting their systems in place, because in recent times, when you make the payment, it doesn't reflect in your bill or on your bill the next month. You know, so I've had the occasion to go there.
You are still postpaid.
You are still postpaid.
You are a privileged Ghanaian.
You know, but the question I'm asking is, PDS promised investing $580 million within 5 years. How much of it have they invested?
For 4 months.
For 4 months. I mean, it is, they wrote on the basis of efficiency. You said you are coming to invest 580 million cedis. Even if it is 3 months, what have you been able to do? I can understand the legal argument that there is no contractual relationship between PDS and the IPPs.
Privity of contract.
Privity of contract comes into play here. But wait a minute. You can't jump out because you came in on the basis of efficiency to the customers or to Ghanaians. So yes, I can understand where is the money. But Ghanaians will continue to hold PDS responsible if we are not able to get our light or our power. People are elected into office to render service, to make us comfortable. So adding my voice to it, ECG must come out and tell us something. The government must explain to us what is happening. PDS owes us a responsibility or owes us an obligation to explain to us why all this is happening. It is not only an ECG problem. The IPPs must press because that is what they need. And they have indeed threatened, like something you said. Yeah. They said they are going to stop supplying 1,500 megawatts, which is about 50% of what we need. And if they shut it down today, there will be Dumsor. And I don't expect us to have Dumsor anytime soon. So what I think can happen is they need to sit down. PDS, ECG, the IPPs, and the ministry to resolve this problem. And I think they are able to resolve it.
Okay. Prof, so like it boils down, they say government. But this one, you can clearly see the IPPs, it's not as if they want to do it because they are in business. They want to stay in business and make money. But here it is, they have invested and they have been stretched thin. They don't have money anymore.
See,
so they are compelled to shut down.
No, not to cut you, but you know, I don't see the political science in this, and I don't really understand, I mean, these issues. But I think ACE has simplified it clearly for all of us, and I admire the way and manner he's gone about it. The difference has been that, you see, whereas John is talking about criticisms and not proffering solutions, ACE is bringing about some solutions, and I like it.
That's not
I don't owe light bill. I need power. I pay my bills, and that's all I know. Those who owe must be made to pay, including government. And then also the wastages, the leakages, and the slippages in the system must be checked. Otherwise, someone must be fired for incompetence. I mean, all that we need is power. When the month ends, you go and settle your bills, and we do all these things. The rest is left to those who are the experts and those who know how to manage these things to go about their duties to ensure that we have regular supply of power. If government is not paying its own bill, the ministry, department, and agencies that are required to be settling their bills, if they are not doing so, they may be contributing to the problem and all that. It is up to power generating bodies to be out there also talking about this. So we also demand that government settle its bills. But the point is, so the areas, the bills of government, ministries, departments, and agencies that are not being settled, we should also be quick to find out. Is it deliberate that they are not paying? Is it that they have the resources and they are not paying?
At the point, I thought we were informed that they were all being reconnected onto prepaid.
Yes, yeah.
John, you remember?
Yeah, we had that, and there were moves. I mean, if you come to where I live, the university campus, we are all on prepaid and all that, just to be able to ensure that you cut down waste and all that. And so, if there are interventions that will ensure that a government ministry is taking off power supply for non-payment, I think that should be done so that we are all
really, including government service.
Well, but
all government service are down.
But they should pay. I mean, they should pay. Otherwise, then the effect is felt by you and I, who are regular payers of our monthly bills and all that. It doesn't help. Yeah.
There was a lot of expectation, even though initially this concessioner thing was was kicked against by some people, particularly those you did kick against it, and those within the ECG itself. We have become aware of how in May, how even the workers were agitating about salaries, conditions, and that collective agreements had not been done with PDS, and the managing director assuring them that whatever they were on with ECG, still remained and all of that. Dr. Odros, I ask a very critical question. The 500 and what?
$80 million.
18.
80.
$80 million that PDS was supposed to bring in, which was what we highlighted to bring them in. How much have they done so far?
This whole arrangement, we had an existing arrangement. And we said, look, the existing arrangement is not serving us well. So let's go for a better alternative. That's what this whole thing is about. So let's get a company with a track record, with a financial muscle that can inject money into this whole system, bring about technical and operational efficiency and all that.
So we are there.
So
we gave
we
it to
went
them
through the
March 1, 2019.
I maintain, and like you said, I kept insisting that the current structure would not serve as well. Because PDS doesn't have that capacity. They don't have the experience. They don't have the financial muscle. And I came up with details, the companies, all the companies, their track record, how old, when they were set up, what is their track record in that sector. And it happened when we decided to change the structure. When we changed the structure, the tier 1 companies, the tier 2 companies pulled out. We're left with just 2 companies, Manila and then BXC. Eventually, we even disqualified BXC. And then Miracle of Manila was left alone. And then we insisted that they should get some Ghanaian companies, and they brought on all these companies. So we got it wrong from the beginning. And so when we keep talking about this, I think that it is grounded. Number 2 is the issue of the cash waterfall. I think that would be part of the major solution. Because what the cash waterfall does is that out of every dollar or cedi that drops in the pot, there's a predetermined proportion. And the banks are authorized, look, give IPPs their money, give PDS their money, give ECG their money. Don't allow PDS to take the money, put it in their accounts, and begin to determine how to disburse that money. So the cash waterfall is critical. If we do not implement the cash waterfall, even though the cash waterfall alone will not eliminate the challenge,
There'll still be a debt.
it will reduce the challenge, and all these issues will not happen. Go to PDS's website today. Tariffs have been announced since 1st July, and check whether the reckoner is published. Look, this is my tablet. You can just press the reckoner. Once you go to check on the reckoner, it tells you that, look, this is PDS's website. Current tariff. Click on it and see what happens. It comes blank. So even you, the customer, you cannot even determine whether you are being billed well or not. And it's all because the company doesn't have the muscle. Like you said, the company is supposed to spend a minimum of $100 million every year. ECG's return on assets was 18%. PURC has agreed to a 23.5% for PDS. Why? We are not just, look, these are legitimate issues. Why would you decide that ECG was getting 18%, a better and more efficient company comes, and you increase their return on assets to 23.5%, and yet they have not put in any money, even the guarantee. I've said it time and again, PDS hasn't put up the guarantee as we speak, because it is the guarantee that you use to hold them accountable. They were supposed to enter into an agreement with ECG. The concession agreement, 2.33G, says that there should be an agreement between PDS and ECG, such that periodically ECG can inspect its assets and ensure that you don't run down the assets. That was waived. So look, we've taken a giant step in the dark, and we're getting into all these problems. My final point is the politics of the power sector. I think that the politicians should allow the professionals to do the job. And that's why we had issues when the president took the initiative to be announcing tariffs. We said that was sending a wrong signal It's the job of PURC. Let PURC announce the tariffs so that when there's a deficit, we can hold PURC responsible. But when the president proceeds to announce tariffs, and now the power producers are saying that, look, because of your tariff structure, we cannot collect enough to pay, it creates a major problem. So to sum it, look, we can make some progress. One, let's institute the cash waterfall as soon as possible. Two, let these sectors begin to communicate. I don't think that the solution is in PDS saying that, look, because we don't have a legal contract with you, we don't owe you. When PDS is not paying ECG, it's just last week they paid the 250 million. For 4 months, you are keeping the monies. For what? Why would you keep monies that you have collected? It doesn't make sense.
Why will our company ECG, if monies are owed, also sit down and not pursue the money?
Because politicians have decided to waive that agreement that they should have entered with PDS before the whole concession kicked in.
Okay, so
if they had entered into that agreement, the 2.33G, where ECG has, no, not just inspection, how much you are collecting and all that, ECG would monitor that.
No,
so if you decide to waive that, you create a major problem.
No, but John, just a sec. They have, you're supposed to pay X amount of money every month. It's been predetermined. So whether they function or not, ECG, it's a collection point. So if this month you're supposed to pay me 300 million and it hasn't come, I'm coming for my 300 million. ECG is our company. That's why I'm wondering why ECG is so loudly silent on this. The silence from ECG is jarring. Why are they not talking? Have they received the money?
You and I know it. You can't say it.
No, I'll say what I have to say here. No,
why is it that PDS is talking, but ECG is not talking?
Why is he not talking?
Why is PDS talking, but ECG is not talking?
Why is JoyFM not asking ECG to stop? But I'll add one more thing. Something happened in Ghana. I think sometimes we miss the little things. When some communities refused to pay the electricity bills or protested about their lights being cut.
Yeah.
And somebody said on radio that, well, when the power was brought, we were told that we're not going to pay for it. John mentions the political thing. Is it possible that in this country, politicians have been to communities and connected them to the grid with a silent political promise that you will not pay for the electricity?
It's not possible.
Oh, well,
all right. We take a break here. We take a break here, and when we return, we will. Should we go to Egypt or we already back? We are back from Egypt. So, so where do we go? Do we go to the normalization or to the GFA? Okay, all of them you'll find them at the GFA and the Ministry of Sport. When we return, we've asked the question whether or not there ought to be a complete overhaul of the Black Stars. But I'm not going to forget to say thank you very much to Dr. Odrosai. He just give us almost the same amount we donated last week for Solomon, his young wife, and the little child. What is going on is that now that he's back from jail, the focus is on the mother and the child. The mother should be set up, and so she can also take care of the child. But Solomon himself, you know, is a baba, so we are assisting him to get to be useful and not to go steal any plantains. He says he just needs his, shop to be equipped with 1 or 2 things, and we're going to assist him with that. Thank you very much, Dr. Odrosai. Thank you very much. Right. So we take a break. We'll be right back.